Welcome back to the channel. End of an era for Rigobert Song at the head of the Cameroon national team. Through a communique, the Minister of Sports announced the non-renewal of Rigobert Song's contract. Samuel Eto'o also gave an interview to France 24 announcing the departure of the legend Rigobert Song. Interesting that he gave that interview to France 24 instead of giving it to a local media. We'll talk about that later on. But I want to address this. There's some confusion as to who actually hires the coach or the managers for the national team. I mean, if you listen to the interview given by Samuel Eto'o, he spells it out right. He talks about the process. First of all, let me bring you back. He talks about having a conversation with Rigobert Song and his team, telling them that the project of the African Nations Cup was not a successful one. Goals were set, and Rigobert Song and his team did not attain those goals. So their contracts were not going to be renewed. He goes ahead to talk on the process. Now, some are crying out interference, but let me bring your attention to what FIFA calls a standard cooperation agreement. This is an agreement that brings together stakeholders of football and the FA. Now, the stakeholder in the case of FECAFOOT is the government of Cameroon. And why is that? For ages now, Cameroon has actually been paying coaches, been sponsoring tournaments, like we go to the World Cup, African Nations Cup. Planes need to be hired and things like that. The government has been sponsoring that. So FIFA, through their SCA article, I think there's an article 34, article 8, and article 4, talks about cooperation, good working relationships between the governments and FAs. Now, FIFA realizes that there's a peculiar type of relationship between the FA, African FAs, and government, because most of them, they are the ones sponsoring the FAs. Now, if the FAs want their independence, they have to look for ways to make money and sponsor themselves. Because I have this saying, he who cuts the checks has a say at the decision table, whether you like it or not. We've seen this before with Iya Mohammed, where he had a fight with the Ministry of Sports. It ended up at the Court of Arbitrations. Now, the Football Federations or Samuel Eto'o will be the one to decide if there's interference or not. And if there's interference, they will have to take it to the Court of Arbitrations. So yes, we might not like the interference. We might not like the interference. We might not like Samuel Eto'o getting bullied, because that's how I say it. That's how I say it. Because if you look at it, Samuel Eto'o had made it clear that he likes local coaches, and that from now on, Cameroon will be going for local coaches. Fast forward, what's happening? After the speech from Eto'o, we are now going back to foreign coaches, because in the interview, you hear a name like Hervé Renard, who's won 2 African Cup of Nations in the continent of Africa. He's a Frenchman. His name came up. Now, can we really blame Eto'o for that? The reason I ask this question is because when Eto'o hired Rigobert Song, was it out of merit, or was it man no man? In my opinion, it was man no man. Because if you look at the record of Rigobert Song in the lower two levels, he failed woefully. So there was nothing, even in the game, even in the style of approach, there was nothing that warranted Song to be hired by Samuel Eto'o at national team level. So that's doing a disfavor to other local coaches. Now the government is saying that, or they're forcing his hand, that it must be a foreign coach. So in the interview given to Franz Venkat, Eto'o elaborates the process. He also reveals that he had a conversation with Gobeson. Their contracts will not be renewed. He reveals to us that three coaches, the profile of three coaches will be studied, and then that profile will be passed on to Eto'o for their final approval. That's the process. That's the working agreement with which Fecafoot actually has with the government. Now, it's interesting. I know that Samuel Eto'o has given local journalists, local media interviews before. But why Franz Venkat this time around? I know ever since the AFCON, we have not seen that much of Eto'o. There must be some tension. In the interview, he mentioned the tension he has with the Ministry of Sports. He mentioned that he also has a good working relationship with the Secretary General of Eto'o because that's where the orders came from. But why? Because Samuel Eto'o is the one that gave a local coach, and that's talking about building a culture of football. But why do you take an important decision like the one we have in hand to Franz Venkat instead of giving it to a local journalist or to a local media house? Now, that's a question we might have to address to Samuel Eto'o because we want to know. But discussions like this are very important because we have to speak our minds. We have to share information. We need constructive conversations so that we understand the game better and we make our game better. Now, I'm in favor of local coaches. I'm not sure we have prepared the foundation because when you hire a guy like Son, the guy who did not merit it. Now, that's my opinion. And through the results, a lot of you guys, because I said this long time ago, after 6-7 games, I said, Rigobert Song, I'm not sure he's the man. After the World Cup, I said African Nations Cup will expose him. Some of you guys denied. Today, we have seen it. So that does a disfavor to some coaches, local coaches that have actually worked either as assistant at the national team level, that are actually worked maybe at lower levels. Because if we don't try, if we don't give our own an opportunity to learn and fail, how will they become better? I hear some of you guys trying to compare Rigobert Song maybe to the Cisse's, to other African coaches that are doing well. I will not go that far because if you look at the Cisse's and other coaches that are doing well, they had to prove themselves at the lower level, and they did well at the lower level before that opportunity was actually given to them. So it was by merit. But when you hire a guy like Rigobert Song, and yes, we have to hold Samuel Eto'o responsible for that, because he's the one who hired someone who did not merit that position. And now the other local coaches might not have a chance just because of that. Why do we keep chasing foreign coaches who do not even understand the culture of our football? I mean, what are we telling the younger generations? That only the foreign coaches are good? No, we have local coaches that can actually do the job. We just saw what happened in Ivory Coast. And sometimes the foreign coaches are good, but they don't understand the culture. And then we pay them about 10, 20 or 15 times more. Look at the case of Egypt, the Hossan Hassan brothers. They're getting paid about 10 times less than what the European coach or the foreign coach used to make. So it's not a problem that is only that's specifically only in Cameroon. It's not restricted to Cameroon. It's a problem that's spread across Africa. So we need actually to change our mindsets. Now, thanks for watching. But please comment. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. It's 19.5 by True Lion.